The stars burned cold against the black emptiness of space. Through this vastness moved the dark ships of the Valthori Imperium. Their vessels looked like giant arrowheads made of obsidian, their surfaces so black they seemed to swallow light, rather than reflect it. For over 500 years, these ships had been the most feared sight in the known galaxy. On the bridge of the flagship Dominion, High Commander Zex stood with his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His scaled skin shimmered with hints of purple and blue under the dim lights. The massive viewscreen before him showed the small blue-green planet they approached. "Another human colony," he said, his voice a low rumble. "They spread like parasites." His second-in-command, Officer Makara, nodded. "This one is called New Appalachia. Population just under 10,000, primarily a mining operation." "Any military presence?" "Minimal. A small security force. Nothing that could stand against even one of our scout ships." Zex made a clicking sound that passed for laughter among the Valthori. "As expected. Send the usual message. We will conduct an inspection in 3 planetary rotations. They will prepare tribute as outlined in the treaty." Across the galaxy, 72 species lived under the boot of the Valthori Imperium. Some had fought and lost. Others had surrendered without battle. All paid tribute and bowed to Valthori authority. All except one, the humans. Not because humans had won any battles, but because they were too new and too small to be worth conquering. For now, the Valthori allowed them to exist on the edges of their territory, under strict rules. On the surface of New Appalachia, 10-year-old, Lily Spencer ran through rows of tomato plants in Greenhouse 5. Her brown hair bounced in pigtails as she carried a basket half filled with ripe red fruit. "Dad, I found some really big ones," she called out. Jack Spencer looked up from the soil testing equipment he was fixing. He was tall with broad shoulders and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. His hands were rough from years of work, first as a miner and now as operations manager for the entire colony. "Good job, kiddo. Your mom will be happy. She's making sauce tonight." Lily placed her basket on a nearby table and peered at her father's work. "Is it broken again?" "Just needs calibration. We have to make sure the soil has the right minerals. Earth plants are picky about growing on alien worlds." Outside the transparent dome of the greenhouse, New Appalachia spread out before them. The colony was nestled in a valley surrounded by purple-tinged mountains. Most buildings were simple prefabricated structures, arranged in neat rows. In the distance, the mining operations cut into the side of the eastern ridge. Above it all, a sky that was just a shade too green to be Earth stretched from horizon to horizon. "When can we visit Earth?" Lily asked. A question she had asked at least once a week since she was old enough to understand she had been born on a different planet than her parents. Jack smiled patiently. "Someday, when we've saved enough credits for the journey. It's a long trip." Before Lily could respond, a loud tone sounded throughout the greenhouse. 3 long beeps followed by 2 short ones. Jack's face turned serious. "That's a priority communication from the colony center," he said, putting down his tools. "Let's go." They walked quickly through the greenhouse and out into the alien air. It was breathable but had a slight metallic taste that newcomers to the colony needed time to get used to. The colony center was a larger building in the middle of the settlement. By the time Jack and Lily arrived, most of the colony's leadership was already gathering. Grace Spencer, Lily's mother, spotted them and waved them over. She was wearing her white doctor's coat, having come straight from the medical center. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and worry lines creased her forehead. "The Valthori are coming," she said quietly to Jack. "An inspection." Jack's jaw tightened. "We just had one 4 months ago. We followed all the regulations." At the front of the room, Colony Administrator Peter Ward called for attention. He was an older man with gray hair and a perpetually tired expression. "I've received official notice from a Valthori command ship. They will arrive in 3 days for an unscheduled inspection. They cite unusual resource signatures as the reason." Murmurs spread through the gathered colonists. "What unusual signatures?" someone called out. Administrator Ward shook his head. "They didn't specify. They never do. We need to prepare for their arrival. All departments will submit updated inventory reports. All mining operations will be temporarily suspended, and we need to gather the tribute resources. Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. Why do we give them our stuff? She whispered. Jack knelt down to her level. Because right now they're stronger than us. But that won't always be the way of things. He glanced up at the other adults with a look that Lily didn't understand. Humans are patient. After the meeting, the Spencers walked back to their home on the north side of the colony. Their house was small but comfortable, with potted earth plants adding splashes of familiar color to the alien setting. I don't like it, Grace said as she began preparing dinner. 2 inspections so close together isn't normal. Jack nodded. I'll check with William tonight. Ambassador Carter? Lily asked. She knew the name from her parents' conversations. William Carter was humanity's main representative to the Valthori. Yes, Jack said. He might know what they're really looking for. That night, after Lily went to bed, Jack sent an encrypted message to Earth's diplomatic offices. The response came sooner than expected. Ambassador Carter would be arriving with the Valthori ship. This is serious, Jack told Grace as they sat at their kitchen table. Carter wouldn't come all this way for a routine inspection. Grace took his hand. Do you think they know? Jack glanced toward Lily's bedroom door, making sure it was closed. About the ore samples? I don't see how they could. We've been careful. If they find out we've been processing Starship-grade materials without declaring them, they won't, Jack assured her. Everything's hidden in the old shaft. They never check there. 3 days passed quickly. The colony prepared as best it could. Extra food was cooked for the expected Valthori representatives. Tribute resources were gathered and arranged for display. Children were instructed to stay out of sight during the inspection. But Lily, curious as always, had no intention of missing the arrival of real aliens and a human ambassador from Earth. As the Valthori ship descended through the atmosphere, a dark shadow against the greenish sky, she hid behind supply crates near the landing pad. The ship was even more impressive up close. It hovered silently before settling on the ground with barely a sound. A ramp extended from its side, touching the soil of New Appalachia. First came the Valthori soldiers, their armor gleaming black with hints of purple. They moved with unnatural grace despite their large forms. Then came their commander, taller than the others, his scaled skin decorated with metal ornaments that marked his high rank. Finally, a human man in a formal suit descended the ramp. Ambassador William Carter looked tired but carried himself with dignity as he approached Administrator Ward and the colony leadership, including Lily's father. Lily couldn't hear what they said, but she saw the Valthori commander gesture sharply toward the mining operation. Something was wrong. The commander's voice rose, becoming audible even from Lily's hiding place. You will show us everything. Now. The Valthori commander stood tall, his scaled skin catching the light as he towered over Administrator Ward. His name was Commander Vorax, and even among the Valthori, he was known for his cruelty. Our scans detected unusual mineral signatures, Vorax said. His voice had a strange metallic quality that made Lily shiver in her hiding place. Signatures that match Starship-grade materials. Materials you have not declared in your reports. Ambassador Carter stepped forward. He was shorter than the Valthori but stood straight and spoke clearly. Commander, I'm sure there's a simple explanation. The New Appalachia colony has always complied with treaty requirements. Vorax's yellow eyes narrowed. Then they will have no issue with a complete inspection. Jack Spencer moved to stand beside Ward. We have nothing to hide, Commander, but our operation is extensive. It will take time to show you everything. Time is something you do not have, Vorax said. He gestured to his soldiers. Secure the mining facilities. Begin scanning immediately. The soldiers moved with frightening speed, spreading out across the colony. Colonists stepped back, faces tight with worry. No one dared to oppose the Valthori directly. Lily watched from her hiding spot, heart pounding. One of the soldiers walked near her position. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, between the supply crates. Ambassador Carter spoke quietly to Jack. What's going on here, Spencer? I need to know what they might find. Nothing unusual, Jack replied, but his eyes didn't meet the ambassador's. For your colony's sake, I hope that's true. Carter turned back to Vorax. Commander, as Earth's representative, I request to accompany your inspection team. Vorax made a dismissive gesture. Follow if you wish, it will change nothing. The inspection party moved toward the mining operation. Lily slipped out from her hiding place and followed at a distance. She knew she should go home as her parents had told her, but curiosity pulled her forward. The main mining facility was built into the side of a mountain. Large equipment moved ore from deep tunnels onto sorting platforms. Everything had been shut down for the inspection, and the unusual silence made the place feel strange and empty. Vorax stood at the entrance to the main tunnel. Your production reports show a 7% increase over the last cycle, yet our scans indicate a much higher mineral extraction rate. Explain. Jack stepped forward. We've improved our efficiency. New equipment from Earth has allowed us to process more ore without increasing our extraction rate. Show me this equipment. Inside the main tunnel, Jack led the inspection group past various mining machines. He explained each one calmly, but Lily, who had snuck in and was hiding behind some equipment, could see the tension in her father's shoulders. One of the Valthori soldiers approached Vorax and whispered something. The commander's face darkened. There is another tunnel, Vorax said. One not on your facility maps. Jack's face paled slightly. That's an old shaft. We abandoned it due to instability. Then you will not mind if we inspect it. Commander, I must advise against it. The structural supports are compromised. It's not safe. Vorax's mouth formed what might have been a smile on a human face. On him, it looked like a predator baring its teeth. Your concern for our safety is noted, but we will see this tunnel. The group moved deeper into the mine. Lily followed, staying in shadows, moving from hiding place to hiding place. She knew these tunnels well from the times her father had brought her to work. She knew where they were heading, the old shaft where she was never allowed to go. At a junction in the tunnel, Jack stopped. The old shaft is through there, but, again, I strongly advise against entering. Vorax pushed past him. Your advice is not required. The commander entered the old tunnel with his soldiers close behind. Ambassador Carter gave Jack a worried look before following. Jack stood still for a moment, then entered as well. Lily waited until they were out of sight, then crept to the tunnel entrance. She could hear their voices echoing. As you can see, it's abandoned, came her father's voice. Then Vorax's angry response. Remove this wall section. There was a sound of equipment powering up, then a crash. Light flooded the tunnel as something was torn away. What is this? Vorax's voice had become dangerous. Lily moved closer, staying hidden behind mining equipment. She could now see into a chamber that had been concealed behind a false wall. Inside were stacks of metallic containers and advanced processing equipment that didn't look like standard mining tools. This is refined quadrium, Vorax said, holding up a glowing blue crystal. A controlled substance under the treaty. Its only use is for advanced starship engines. Ambassador Carter turned to Jack, his face shocked. Spencer, what have you done? Jack stood straight, no longer pretending. What we needed to do for humanity's future. You have violated the treaty, Vorax said. His voice was now eerily calm. The penalty is clear. The treaty is strangling us, Jack replied. The Valthori take our resources and give nothing in return. We need ships, real ships, not the short-range transports you allow us. Your needs are not our concern. Vorax stepped closer to Jack. This colony will be disbanded. All resources seized. The leaders will face judgment on the Valthori homeworld. You can't do that. Jack's voice rose. There are families here, children. Vorax struck without warning. His large hand hit Jack across the face with such force that it sent him crashing into the wall. You do not tell a Valthori what can and cannot be done. Lily gasped from her hiding place. Without thinking, she ran out into the open. Dad! Everyone turned toward the sound. Lily rushed to her father, who was slumped against the wall, blood running from his mouth. A child, Vorax said, his voice filled with disgust. Remove it. One of the Valthori soldiers moved toward Lily. His hand reached out to grab her. Leave her alone. Jack tried to get up, but another soldier held him down. Ambassador Carter stepped between Lily and the soldier. She's just a child. Let me take her out of here. The soldier hesitated, looking to Vorax for orders. Vorax made an impatient gesture. Deal with this nuisance. The soldier pushed Carter aside with enough force to send the ambassador stumbling. Then he turned back to Lily, who stood frozen in fear. With casual cruelty, he backhanded her. Time seemed to slow. Lily's small body flew through the air, striking a metal support beam with a sickening thud before crumpling to the ground. Blood began to pool beneath her head. For a moment, everyone stood still. Then Jack let out a howl of rage and grief that echoed through the tunnel. He broke free from the soldier holding him and rushed to his daughter. Ambassador Carter stood, his face white with shock. What have you done? He whispered. Vorax seemed unimpressed. It is merely a human child. Continue the inspection. But no one moved. Something had changed in the air. The human colonists who had been watching from a distance began to move forward, their faces transformed with a kind of fury the Valthori had never seen before. Carter knelt beside Jack, who was cradling Lily's broken body. Blood soaked through her clothes. Her breathing was shallow. She needs medical attention immediately, Carter said, his diplomatic calm cracking with urgency. Vorax finally seemed to sense the change in the humans around him. We will allow you to tend to your young, he said dismissively. But this changes nothing. The treaty violations remain. Jack looked up. The grief in his eyes was now matched by something else. A cold, burning hatred that made even the Valthori step back. Everything has changed, Jack said quietly. You just don't know it, yet. News traveled fast. It always did when it mattered most. Grace Spencer worked with desperate focus in the colony's medical center. Her daughter lay on the treatment table, small and broken. Medical scanners hummed, machines beeped. Grace's hands moved with the steady precision of a trained doctor, but her eyes held the wild fear of a mother. Severe concussion, internal bleeding, fractured skull. Her voice was flat as she listed the injuries to her assistant. Jack stood nearby, his face a mask of stone. Blood still dried on his lip from where Vorax had struck him, but he seemed to have forgotten his own pain. Ambassador Carter stood at his side, speaking urgently into a communication device. I need an emergency channel to Earth Central, Carter said. Authorization code Alpha 7 Echo 9. Outside the medical center, a crowd had gathered. Word of what had happened spread through the colony in whispers that grew louder with each telling. A Valthori had struck down a human child. The unforgivable had happened. Miles above the planet, Commander Vorax returned to his ship. He felt no remorse, no concern. The humans had broken the treaty. They would be punished as an example to others who might consider defiance. The child was irrelevant, merely a minor complication in an otherwise routine enforcement operation. Set course. For the nearest Valthori outpost, he ordered. We will return with a containment fleet to process this colony. As the dark ship rose into the green-tinged sky, the humans watched in silence. Not with the usual fear that accompanied Valthori movements, but with something new. A cold, calculating rage that would soon spread across human space. On Earth, in the gleaming towers of the United Earth Government, Admiral Eleanor Blackwood received the encrypted message from New Appalachia. The holographic display showed the medical scans of Lily Spencer, followed by the security footage from the mining tunnel. The Admiral was a tall woman with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had led Earth's modest defense fleet for 15 years, always careful to maintain the delicate balance with the Valthori. Her career had been built on caution and diplomacy. She watched the footage 3 times. She watched the Valthori soldier strike Lily. She watched the child's body hit the metal beam. Then she stood, removed her uniform jacket with its admiral's insignia, and placed it carefully on her desk. Her aide looked confused. "Admiral, I'm resigning my commission," she said quietly. "Effective immediately." "Ma'am, I don't understand." "You will." She picked up her personal communication device. "Contact every ship captain in the fleet, not through official channels, person to person." Similar scenes played out across human space. Military leaders stepped down. Scientists abandoned government projects. Shipyard workers walked off the job without explanation. The Valthori noticed none of this. Their intelligence network reported only that human communications had become unusually quiet. There were no protests, no diplomatic outreach, no pleas for mercy. This was interpreted as submission, the natural response of an inferior species faced with punishment. They were wrong. In a small medical transport ship speeding toward New Appalachia, Dr. Samuel Reeves prepared his equipment. He was Earth's leading neurosurgeon, pulled from his bed in the middle of the night with only 2 words of explanation. A child. That was enough. He brought his best team and his most advanced equipment. Upon reaching the colony, Dr. Reeves worked for 22 hours straight, his hands steady as he repaired the damage to Lily's brain. Grace assisted, her medical training allowing her to work alongside the specialist despite her fear for her daughter. "She'll live," Dr. Reeves finally said, removing his surgical mask. "There will be challenges, but she'll live." Jack, who had not left the medical center since the incident, finally allowed himself to sit down. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough from exhaustion. Dr. Reeves shook his head. "No thanks needed. I came for her. We all did." Outside, more ships had arrived. Not military vessels. Earth couldn't risk that yet, but civilian ships of all kinds. Mining vessels, research boats, private yachts. They came filled with supplies, weapons hidden in cargo holds, and people with skills. Among these arrivals was former Admiral Blackwood. She wore civilian clothes as she stepped onto the colony's landing pad. A group of colony leaders and Earth representatives waited for her. "You didn't need to come yourself," Ambassador Carter said, greeting her. "Yes, I did." Her eyes were hard. "Show me everything." They led her to a hastily established command center in the colony's main hall. Maps and diagrams covered the walls. People worked at communication stations. The room fell silent as she entered. "The Valthori will return in force," one of the colony leaders said. Vorax made that clear. Blackwood nodded. "How long do we have?" 3 days, maybe 4. Not enough time to evacuate everyone. Jack Spencer stepped forward. He looked different. Now, older, harder. "We're not evacuating," he said. Blackwood studied him. "You're the father?" "Yes." "How is she?" "She'll live." His voice caught slightly on the words. "But that doesn't change what needs to happen now." Blackwood looked around the room. "What are your resources?" "More than the Valthori know about," Jack said. "We've been preparing, not just here, everywhere." Carter looked troubled. "Eleanor, we need to consider diplomatic options. If we—" Diplomacy ended when they touched her. Blackwood cut in. Her voice was not angry, just matter of fact. "You know that as well as I do." She turned back to Jack. "Show me what you have." Across human space, shipyards that had been producing freighters and science vessels began retooling with quiet efficiency. Colonial militias armed themselves. Veterans of Earth's conflicts emerged from retirement to offer tactical expertise. On Chu, Mars colony, Dr. Olivia Rodriguez, a leading weapons researcher who had publicly advocated for peace with the Valthori, locked her laboratory and began working on something new. Her team asked no questions when she said, "For Lily." On Europa base, Commander Frank Dawson, who had once shared a diplomatic dinner with Valthori representatives, removed their gifts from his office wall and began drilling his security forces day and night. On every human world, the message spread. Remember New Appalachia? The Valthori intercepted some of these communications but failed to understand their significance. They had conquered species that outnumbered humans by billions, species with technology centuries more advanced. What threat could these soft, emotional creatures possibly pose? Commander Vorax, preparing his containment fleet, dismissed reports of unusual human activity. He had dealt with human defiance before. Their pattern was predictable: initial resistance followed by surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They would learn their place, as all species eventually did. But Vorax did not understand the line that had been crossed. The Valthori had never faced an enemy with humanity's unique psychology. Their ability to cooperate across vast distances, their capacity to repurpose peaceful technology for war, and most dangerously, their response when their children were threatened. In the medical center on New Appalachia, Lily Spencer opened her eyes for the first time since the incident. Her first words were weak but clear. "Is Dad okay?" Grace, who had barely left her daughter's side, smiled through tears. "Yes, sweetheart, he's okay. The aliens were hurting him. I know, but don't worry about that now." Outside the medical center, final preparations were being made. The colony no longer looked like a mining outpost. Defenses had been erected, weapons had been distributed, ships hovered protectively in orbit. Jack Spencer stood with Eleanor Blackwood, looking up at the sky where Valthori ships would soon appear. "They don't understand what they've done," Blackwood said quietly. "No," Jack agreed. "They never bothered to learn about us. That was their mistake. There's still a chance this ends badly for humanity." Jack nodded. "But we won't be ruled by fear anymore. Not after Lily." Commander Vorax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion. Around him, a fleet of 30 Valthori warships moved in perfect formation. Each was a masterpiece of alien engineering, bristling with weapons that could reduce a colony to ash in minutes. "We will arrive at the human settlement in 6 hours, his navigation officer reported. "Good." Vorax's scaled face showed no emotion. "Prepare the containment protocols. The colony leaders will be taken for trial. The rest will be relocated to labor facilities." "What of their ships in orbit?" asked his second-in-command. Vorax studied the sensor readings. Several human vessels had gathered around New Appalachia. Mostly civilian ships, nothing that could challenge even one Valthori warship. "If they resist, destroy them," Vorax said simply. "They are making a display of defiance. It means nothing." The Valthori had never truly feared humans. They were too few, too weak, too divided. Their technology was primitive compared to the Imperium's. Their military was small and designed for defense, not conquest. They had been permitted to exist because they were not worth the effort to fully subjugate. But the Valthori had made a critical error in their assessment. They had never bothered to study human history. If they had, they might have understood what they were about to face. On New Appalachia, the colony had transformed. What had been a peaceful mining settlement now looked like a fortress. Defense. Turrets hastily assembled from mining equipment lined the perimeter. Shelters had been dug into the mountainside for non-combatants. Every adult who could hold a weapon had been armed and assigned a position. In the command center, former Admiral Blackwood stood before a holographic display of the approaching Valthori fleet. "They're coming in standard conquest formation," she said. "They expect minimal resistance." Jack Spencer nodded. He hadn't slept in days, but his eyes were clear and focused. "That works in our favor." Ambassador Carter looked troubled. "This is madness. We can't win a direct confrontation. We should evacuate who we can and surrender the colony." "This isn't about winning a battle," Jack said. "It's about showing them who we really are." Blackwood pulled up another display. "The Morning Star is in position. Dr. Rodriguez reports her modifications are complete. The mining fleet is standing by. And our friends in the Valthori home system? Ready? They're just waiting for the signal." Carter looked from one to the other. "What are you talking about? What modifications? What signal?" Neither answered him directly. Instead, Jack touched a control panel, opening a communication channel. "All units, final checks. They'll be here soon." In space, the human ships took up positions around the planet. They were an odd assortment, mining vessels with reinforced hulls, Research ships equipped with powerful scanners, transport vessels designed to carry ore. None were built for combat. None looked dangerous to Valthori eyes, but appearances were deceiving. Dr. Olivia Rodriguez moved through the corridors of the Morning Star, a research vessel normally used for deep space studies. The ship's laboratories had been transformed. Where there had once been equipment for analyzing stellar phenomena, there were now rows of small metallic spheres. Final calibration complete, her assistant reported. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Load them into the deployment tubes. Remember, precise targeting is essential. Throughout the ship, scientists and engineers, people who had spent their careers creating tools to understand the universe, now prepared for war. On the mining vessel Deep Horizon, Captain Kyle Mitchell briefed his crew. They were miners, not soldiers, but their faces showed the same determination. Our ships are slow, but our hulls are reinforced to withstand asteroid impacts, he said. We'll use that to our advantage. Approach patterns as we discussed. No heroics. Stick to the plan. Similar preparations took place on every human ship. People who had never imagined themselves as warriors checked weapons, studied tactical displays, and made final communications to loved ones. Lily Spencer sat up in her hospital bed for the first time since the attack. Her head was wrapped in bandages and she moved slowly, but her eyes were alert. Grace helped her take a sip of water. "Where's Dad?" Lily asked. "He's helping prepare our defense," Grace answered honestly. "The Valthori are coming back." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Because of what I saw in the mine?" "No, sweetheart. Because of what they did to you." The girl looked confused. "But I'm just one person." Grace smoothed her daughter's hair gently around the bandages. "To us, there's no such thing as just one person, especially not a child." Outside the medical center window, they could see people moving with purpose, carrying equipment, checking defenses. The entire colony worked together like parts of a single machine. "Are we going to fight them?" Lily asked. "Yes," Grace said. "For the first time, we're going to show them who humans really are." The Valthori fleet dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of the new Appalachia system. Their black ships moved forward in attack formation, weapons ready. "The humans have not fled," Vorax noted with mild surprise. "Curious." "They have repositioned their ships," his tactical officer reported. "They appear to be attempting to block our approach." Vorax made a dismissive gesture. "A futile gesture. Open a channel. Let me explain the consequences of their continued defiance." A communication screen appeared before him. Jack Spencer's face filled the display. "Human," Vorax said. "Your colony has violated the treaty. Your ships will stand down and your leaders will surrender for judgment. Comply now, and the rest of your people will be spared." Jack's expression remained calm. "We have a message for the Valthori Imperium." "Your message is irrelevant. You will—" "The message is this: no more children." Vorax paused, confused by the human's words. "Explain." "You'll understand soon enough." Jack's image disappeared. Vorax turned to his crew. "Advance on the colony. Disable their ships if possible. Destroy them if necessary." The Valthori fleet moved forward. The human vessels held their positions, seemingly waiting for the slaughter to begin. Then, without warning, the research vessel, Morning Star, released thousands of tiny metallic spheres. They spread out like a cloud, moving at incredible speed toward the Valthori ships. "What are those?" Vorax demanded. "Unknown objects," his sensor officer replied. "Too small to cause damage. No explosive signatures detected. Ignore them, continue advance." The spheres reached the Valthori fleet. They passed through the advanced shields as if they weren't there, because they weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were Dr. Rodriguez's life work, repurposed. Medical nanites, designed to repair human cells, now reprogrammed for a different task. The tiny machines attached themselves to the Valthori ships' hulls and began to drill, seeking out control systems, power conduits, life support. Alarms blared across the Valthori fleet as systems began to fail. Ships lost power. Weapons went offline. Communications failed. "What is happening?" Vorax roared. Before anyone could answer, the mining vessels began to move. Slow but unstoppable, their reinforced hulls designed to withstand the harshest conditions. Of space, they accelerated toward the disabled Valthori ships. Captain Mitchell's voice came over the emergency channel. For Lily, the first impacts shook the Valthori fleet. The mining vessels were not trying to destroy their targets, only to damage them enough to prevent their escape. One by one, the proud warships of the Imperium were crippled by vessels never designed for combat. On the Dominion, Vorax watched in disbelief as his fleet was systematically disabled by an enemy he had dismissed as weak and primitive. "How is this possible?" he demanded of no one in particular. His communications officer, voice shaking, provided the answer. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Valthori homeworld." Commander Vorax stared at the communication screen as it flickered to life. The image showed the Grand Hall of the Valthori High Council on the homeworld, a place that should have been secure, untouchable by human hands. But something was wrong. The council members were not seated in their usual places of power. Instead, they stood in a group surrounded by humans in plain clothes. "What is this?" Vorax demanded. The face of scholar matriarch Zivix appeared on the screen. She was one of the oldest and most respected members of the Valthori leadership, known for her study of other species. "Commander Vorax," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "The High Council has been convinced to reconsider our relationship with humanity." Vorax could not believe what he was seeing. "How have humans reached the homeworld?" "Our defenses were designed to stop warships and known weapons," Zivix interrupted, "not cargo vessels filled with volunteers on one-way journeys." The camera moved to show more of the council chamber. Humans stood calmly among the Valthori leaders. They carried no visible weapons, yet somehow they had taken control of the heart of the Imperium. The screen split to show similar scenes from across Valthori space, their major military bases, their shipyards, their most secure facilities. In each location, humans had appeared and taken control with minimal violence. "Impossible," Vorax whispered. Jack Spencer's voice came over the communication channel. "Not impossible, just unlikely, like a small mining colony successfully fighting back against the Imperium." The screen changed again, showing what at first looked like stars against the black of space. But as the image zoomed in, Vorax realized he was seeing thousands of small ships approaching the Valthori homeworld from all directions. Not warships, simple transport vessels carrying more humans. "While you focused on our military capabilities," Jack continued, "you never bothered to count how many of us were willing to risk everything when you crossed the line." Blackwood's voice added, "You never studied us. If you had, you'd know what happens when humans unite against a common enemy." On New Appalachia, in the command center, Jack and Blackwood watched Vorax's stunned reaction. Around them, the colony's leadership waited in tense silence. "How long have you been planning this?" Ambassador Carter asked, his diplomatic composure finally broken. "Years," Jack admitted. "Not just here. Everywhere humans have settled." The treaty violations were intentional. We needed the Valthori to focus on something small, quadrium smuggling, while we prepared something much bigger. Carter shook his head in disbelief. "And all those ships reaching the Valthori homeworld?" "One-way missions," Blackwood said quietly. "Volunteers, people willing to give everything to change the balance of power. But why now? Why not wait until—" "Because of Lily," Jack said simply. "We were planning to wait another year, build more strength, but when they hurt her, when they showed such casual cruelty to a child, everyone agreed. It had to be now." On the Dominion, Vorax struggled to comprehend how thoroughly he had been outmaneuvered. His mighty fleet lay disabled. His homeworld was compromised. The Imperium's most secure facilities had been infiltrated not by soldiers, but by ordinary humans willing to sacrifice everything. "What do you want?" he finally asked, his arrogance replaced by confusion. Jack Spencer's face filled the screen again. A new arrangement, one based on respect, not fear. Matriarch Zivik spoke from the homeworld. The High Council is prepared to negotiate new terms with humanity. You cannot simply, Vorax began. It is already done. Zivix cut him off. The humans have shown us a strength we did not recognize and a mercy we did not expect. Mercy? Vorax spat the word. They could have killed us all, Zivix said. Instead, they asked to talk. 1 month later, Lily Spencer sat in the colony's meeting hall, watching as her father signed his name to a document. Beside him stood Matriarch Zivix, her scaled hand, adding the mark of the Valthori High Council. The hall was filled with people from both species. Humans and Valthori stood together, watching the creation of something new. The Lily Accords. Grace explained quietly to her daughter. They're agreeing that children of all species will be protected during any conflict, that what happened to you will never happen to anyone else. Lily looked at her mother. The bandages were gone from her head now, though her hair was still growing back over the surgical sites. All because of me? Because of what you showed them, Grace said. That hurting a child was something humanity would never accept, not from anyone. Across the room, Ambassador Carter stood with Blackwood. I still can't believe it worked, he said. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our response to threats against our children, Blackwood replied. The Valthori just didn't know it until now. After the signing, Jack came to sit beside his daughter. How are you feeling? Better, Lily said. She looked at the Valthori in the room. They seemed different now, less frightening, more real. Are they our friends now? Jack considered this. Not exactly, not yet, but they respect us now. And that's where friendship can begin. Matriarch Zivix approached the Spencer family. She bowed slightly to Lily, a gesture of respect that would have been unthinkable months before. Your recovery pleases me, she said, in careful human language. Lily, with a child's directness, asked, Why did your people hurt me? The matriarch was silent for a moment. Because we did not see. We thought strength was only in weapons and warships. We did not understand that true strength lies in what a people will do for their young. Will you hurt other children? Never again, Zivix promised. The Lily Accords will ensure that. Later that evening, the Spencers returned to their home. It looked much as it had before everything changed, though now tall windows offered a view of the valley where a joint human-Valthori science facility was being built. Lily went to her room, tired from the day's events. Jack and Grace sat together at the kitchen table, finally allowing themselves a moment of quiet reflection. Did you ever imagine it would end like this? Grace asked. Jack shook his head. I thought we'd be lucky to survive. I never expected to change the entire balance of power in the galaxy. It wasn't just us, Grace said. It was everyone. Every human who volunteered. Every ship that carried them. Every scientist who repurposed their life's work. All because they hurt a child, Jack said quietly. Outside, the alien sky darkened. Stars appeared, the same stars that had once belonged to the Valthori, ruled through fear. Now they belonged to all species, with the promise of something better. In her room, Lily looked out at those stars before falling asleep. She didn't fully understand all that had happened or her place in it. She just knew that something had changed, something important. And somehow it had started with her. Across human space, the story spread. The story of how the mighty Valthori Imperium had been brought low not by weapons or armies, but by their failure to understand a simple truth. That humans would never ever accept harm to their children. Not from anyone. Not even from those who ruled the stars with fear.